I thought I had time, plenty of it. I thought regret was something you collect when you're old, not something you build slowly day by day. Conversation by conversation, silence by silence. I didn't see it at first. No one ever does. We mistake distractions for dreams. We mistake being busy for being important. I thought being needed at work meant I mattered at home. I thought showing up to meetings was the same as showing up to life. And every time I told myself, this can wait, I didn't know what it would cost. You don't notice when someone stops waiting for you. They don't slam the door. They don't shout. They just become quieter, lighter, until you can no longer hear the space they used to fill. I missed a lot of things, small things, things you don't think you'll ever regret. I missed a late-night conversation because I was tired. I missed a chance to apologize because I was proud. I missed a final goodbye because I was scared. That's the thing about silence. It doesn't always scream. Sometimes it just lingers. It hums quietly behind every memory you'd rather forget. People say time heals, but they forget to mention that it also buries. And under that burial, the unsaid, the undone, the unheard. There were voices I should have answered, hands I should have held, rooms I should have walked into. But I didn't because I thought I had time. I remember sitting at the dinner table across from my father. He stirred his soup longer than he ate it. I wanted to ask, "Are you okay?" But I didn't, because the silence between us had become familiar, comfortable, dangerous. I remember my son sitting in the hallway after his first heartbreak. He didn't say anything, just waited. And I didn't know what to tell him, so I didn't, and neither did he. And I remember a voicemail from my best friend. Just one sentence, "Call me back." I never did. That's how these things work. They arrive quietly, unannounced, unemotional, and they only echo when it's already too late. Have you ever carried a moment that didn't seem important until years later, when it showed up in your dreams like a question you never answered? Have you ever stood outside a door you should have opened but didn't, and now no one is on the other side? Because I have. And this video, this story, is not a lesson. It's a confession. It's not wisdom. It's what I wish someone had said to me before the silence began. It's not about forgiveness. It's about permission to grieve, to remember, to feel, to return. If you're carrying something you never got to say, stay with me. Because I never said goodbye, and I regret it. Every single day. It was a Tuesday morning. I remember that clearly. Not because anything special happened, but because it was the last morning I ever felt truly sure about what I thought I wanted. The coffee was bitter that day, or maybe it was the way she handed it to me, no sugar, no smile. We had argued the night before about something small, laundry, I think, but it wasn't about laundry. It never is. The truth is, we had stopped arguing about things that mattered because we were too tired to even admit what was broken. I got the call at 9:17 a.m., a number I didn't recognize, a voice I'd only met once at a conference 2 years before. He offered me the job, vice president, bigger team, new city, double the pay. I said yes before he even finished the sentence. I told myself it was the right decision, that she would understand, that the kids would adapt, that success sometimes means sacrifice. But what I sacrificed wasn't just location, it was presence. It was the quiet moments between two people who used to speak without words. When I told her, she didn't react, she didn't fight, didn't ask me to stay. She simply nodded and walked to the sink like I just told her the weather was changing. The kids were quiet that evening. I don't think they understood what moving meant, and I didn't explain it. Because I wasn't sure myself. The new job started in October. By November, I was working 70-hour weeks. By December, I forgot our anniversary. I sent flowers, but forgot the card. She never mentioned it, which somehow hurt more than if she had. The apartment was spacious. high ceilings, view of the skyline, but no sound, no toys on the floor, no burnt toast smell in the morning, no dad. Where are my socks? No chaos. Just clean and quiet and cold. One night, I got a video call. My daughter had lost her first tooth. They saved it in a jar for me. She asked if I'd be home that weekend. I said no. There was a board meeting? She nodded, just like her mother. She was learning early how to expect less from the people she loved most. That night, I opened a bottle of wine meant for a celebration that never happened. And I poured it into a glass too big, too empty. The next morning, I found my tie in the fridge and my phone still on airplane mode. Missed calls, one from my wife, one from my son, none from myself. The job kept growing, so did the distance. There was a time when she used to send me voice messages. Now, she just sent me links to school photos, to calendars, to forms that needed signing. We became co-managers of a household I no longer lived in. I remember one weekend I flew back, surprised them, but no one was home. I waited in the driveway for 2 hours. Eventually, she pulled up with groceries, alone. She looked at me like a stranger who had parked in the wrong spot. I asked where the kids were. She said they didn't want to cancel their plans. She wasn't angry. She wasn't even sad. She was just done. Years passed. I climbed ladders that never led me back to where I started. I had plaques, titles, PowerPoint slides with my name at the bottom corner, but no one to text when the meetings ended. One night, I got an email. Subject line reconfirmation, custody hearing. And that was the first time I realized I hadn't just lost a marriage. I'd lost the version of me who knew how to stay. Not physically, but emotionally, truthfully, deliberately. I visited my son 6 months later, college dorm. He greeted me with formality, like a polite host showing an investor around. I asked if he was okay. He said, "Sure, Dad. I've been okay for a while now." I smiled, but I felt like he'd grown up in a time lapse I never witnessed. That promotion I was so proud of, I don't remember the title now. I don't remember the office, or the team, or the bonuses. But I remember the sound of my daughter hanging up early. The silence after a birthday call I forgot. The way my ex-wife once said, "You always thought time was something you could buy back." She was right. And that's why this chapter matters. Because it wasn't just a job, it was a decision, a quiet one, but the kind that echoes for decades. We hadn't spoken in 7 years, not because we fought, but because we never really knew how to end one. It started with a disagreement, something dumb, a joke that went too far, a reaction that felt too big, then pride, then silence. We kept living our lives as if the other didn't exist, as if shared childhood could be erased by one bad afternoon. His name was Daniel. He was my best friend, my brother in everything except blood. We met when we were 8, lost teeth together, broke bones riding the same stolen bike, fell in love with the same girl in high school and both got rejected. He knew every version of me I ever tried to hide. But adulthood has a strange way of turning mirrors into walls. And I stopped calling, and he stopped asking why. I got married. He wasn't there. He started a business. I didn't invest. He became a father. I found out through Facebook. And still, I thought we'd reconnect. Eventually. At a wedding. At a funeral. At something. Because we always think we'll get a chance to fix what we broke quietly. One night, my phone buzzed. Late, almost midnight. It was his name. I stared at the screen. It felt strange to see it again. Familiar, but not friendly. I didn't answer. I was tired. I told myself I'll call him tomorrow. The next day, I listened to the voicemail. "Hey, it's Dan. Just wondering how you're doing. No pressure. Call if you want." His voice sounded older, slower, less certain. And in that moment, I heard the years he had carried without me. I didn't call. I was in the middle of a project, deadline, family things, life. But really I was ashamed. Ashamed of the silence I had let grow like a tree between us. So tall I no longer knew how to climb it. 2 weeks later, I got a call from a number I didn't know. Again, this time it wasn't him. It was his sister. He had a heart attack, didn't make it. She said he passed peacefully. I remember staring at the wall, trying to imagine what peaceful meant to a man who called and didn't get an answer. I went to the funeral, sat in the back, didn't speak. His wife never looked at me. His daughter didn't know my name. But I knew hers. He told me about her in an email I never replied to. That night, I walked past his childhood home. The porch light was off, but I could still hear our laughter echoing between the wooden beams. I whispered, "I'm sorry, but wind doesn't carry words back to the dead." Years pass, and yet, his voicemail stayed on my phone. I couldn't delete it, even when I changed devices, even when I tried to move on. Sometimes, I'd play it just to hear someone say my name without judgment. Just Dan, saying call if you want. And I wanted to, so many times, even when I knew he wouldn't answer. There's something cruel about a moment that waits for you just once. And if you don't take it, it doesn't wait again. I've said sorry so many times in my head. To him, to the years, to the version of me that didn't know how to say it when it still mattered. But apologies, once expired, turn into lessons. And lessons, once too late, become scars. I carry this one like a shadow. It doesn't hurt every day, but it shows up in the quiet, in the mirror, in the voicemail I still can't delete. So if you're reading this, and there's someone you haven't called back, don't wait, don't hesitate, because pride doesn't keep you warm when the silence gets cold. Because forgiveness shouldn't arrive after the eulogy. Hospitals have a smell. It's not just sterile, it's something in the silence, a kind of waiting that feels permanent. When I walked in, the nurse didn't ask for my name. She simply looked at me and nodded like she already knew why I had come and why I had waited too long. My father was in room 212. The hallway felt longer than usual. Or maybe it was me walking slower. I hadn't seen him in over a year. We had spoken but not really connected. A few texts, an occasional call, mostly silence. That kind of silence that doesn't shout, it just becomes the language you both speak without using words. When I reached the door, I didn't go in, not immediately. I stood there, hand on the handle, heart beating too fast for a son who had nothing to fear except the truth. The nurse walked by again. She paused, said softly, "He's been looking at the door all afternoon." I nodded, but I didn't move. I told myself he's resting. He wouldn't want to be disturbed. He knows I'm here. But the truth was, I was afraid. Afraid of what he might say, afraid of what I might not say, afraid of seeing him as fragile, as human, as temporary. My father and I had a complicated relationship. He wasn't cruel, just distant, strict, quiet. He taught me more through silence than words. And so, in my own way, I learned to do the same. To bottle, to swallow, to pretend. And now, here we were, one last moment, and I couldn't open the door. I stood there for 23 minutes. Yes, I counted, not at the time, but later, when I replayed it over and over in my head. 23 minutes of doubt, of hesitation, of cowardice. He passed during the 24th. I wasn't in the room. I wasn't holding his hand. I wasn't saying goodbye. He left with the door closed. Afterwards, the nurse asked if I wanted a moment alone with him. I did, but I said no. I don't know why. Maybe shame, maybe denial, maybe because I already knew that room wasn't meant for reconciliation, only regret. At the funeral, I didn't cry. Not because I wasn't sad, but because I didn't feel entitled to grief. How do you mourn someone you never gave closure to? How do you say goodbye to a man you never fully said hello to? Later that week, I visited his old study. The books were untouched, dusty, but lined perfectly, just like he always kept them. I found a note in his handwriting. It was addressed to no one, just one sentence. There's more I should have said. I don't know when he wrote it or who it was meant for, but I like to think it was for me. And maybe it was his way of saying, I forgive you for not opening the door. Now, every time I walk past a hospital, I look at the doors, and I wonder how many other sons stood outside and waited until it was too late. The room I didn't enter still visits me. In dreams, in stillness, in rooms I do enter now with people I care about too much to lose to silence again. If I could go back, I wouldn't bring flowers. I wouldn't rehearse a speech. I would just walk in, sit down, hold his hand, and be there, even if neither of us knew what to say. Because presence is sometimes louder than words. And sometimes all someone needs is to not be alone when everything else is slipping away. Love rarely ends because of one big thing. It ends in the moments you tell yourself, this can wait, this isn't urgent, this won't hurt them. But it does. It always does. I used to believe that love was something I could park somewhere safe while I went off to build a future. I told myself that when I came back, it would still be there, untouched, unchanged, waiting. But love isn't furniture. It doesn't stay just because you plan to return. I chose a business trip over her art show. She had worked for months on it, printed the invitations herself, practiced what she would say to strangers walking through her gallery with polite eyes and half-interest. She told me it was fine, that she understood, that work was important. I told myself she meant it, that she was proud of me. But when I saw the photos later, she was standing beside her work alone. In every picture, she was smiling. But her eyes, they were scanning the crowd for someone who never came. I chose conference calls over dinner dates. She'd wait for me with candles lit, food growing cold, hope growing tired. I'd walk in late, kiss her cheek, say I'm starving, eat, shower, sleep. No questions, so no stories, no how was your day. Just schedules, tasks, achievements, silence. Love can survive arguments, but it drowns in neglect. I chose my ego over vulnerability. She once cried in the car, said she felt invisible, that she wasn't sure if I loved her anymore. I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing, because I thought silence was safer than honesty. But silence isn't neutral. It's a vote. It says, you're not worth the risk of discomfort. And she heard that every time I chose not to speak, I chose proving myself over choosing her. The job, the status, the image. It mattered more than her voice in the middle of the night saying, I miss who you used to be. And maybe she missed who she used to be when she was with someone who saw her as more than just support. We used to dance in the kitchen, randomly, when the kettle was boiling, when a song came on. She'd pull me by the hand, bare feet, half a smile, spin, laugh. I'd resist at first. Too busy. I'd say, let me finish this email. 5 more minutes. But love doesn't wait for you to finish the urgent things you'll never remember later. One night, she stopped asking. I came home to music playing, but she wasn't dancing. Just folding laundry, humming to herself. And I realized she had begun building a life that didn't require my permission to feel joy. She didn't leave loudly. She never screamed. She just faded, started sleeping earlier, stopped texting as much, laughed less at my stories. And when she did leave, it was with a suitcase I hadn't noticed she packed over many months of choosing everything but her. Now, years later, I remember the smell of her shampoo more vividly than any contract I ever signed. I remember the feel of her hand reaching for mine under restaurant tables, the way her thumb would trace mine gently, absent-mindedly, like she was reassuring herself that I was still there. And I was, physically, but presence without participation is a form of absence no one should have to carry. If I could go back, I'd burn every urgent email, delete every draft that cost me a smile from her. I'd answer her tears with more than confusion. I'd listen without preparing a response. I'd dance every time she asked. Because now the kitchen is silent, the kettle whistles for no one, and the only music I hear is memory. We always assume there will be time for one last goodbye. One last moment to say the words we've rehearsed in our heads but never allowed. One last thank you. I'm sorry, I love you. I remember, don't go. But sometimes the last moment is one you didn't recognize when it happened. And by the time you do, it's gone. She had been sick for months, quietly, privately, the kind of illness you don't talk about until you have no choice. I knew she had been tired. I noticed her voice getting softer, her laugh fading faster. But I didn't ask, not because I didn't care, but because I didn't want to hear what I couldn't fix. She called me once from the hospital. Her voice was lighter than I remembered. Hey, she said, I'm okay. They're just running tests. She asked how I was. I told her about work, emails, weather, nothing real. She said, I miss your voice. And I said, you'll hear it again soon. But she didn't. That was the last time we spoke. I got the call 2 days later. Her sister, no ceremony, just the truth. She was gone. No drawn-out ending, no final breath with people gathered. Just silence and machines that stopped beeping. I didn't cry, not immediately. Grief has a delay when you weren't there to witness the end. At the funeral, they asked if I wanted to say a few words. I said no. What could I say to people who knew her in her final days when I only knew the girl from our beginnings? What could I offer that wouldn't sound like apology wrapped in memory? But the words came later, alone, at night, in bed, when no one was listening but the ceiling. I told her I was sorry for not visiting more. Sorry for the unanswered texts, for the way I left when she needed me to stay just one more hour. I whispered what I should have said to her face. I loved you even when I didn't act like it. I missed you before you even left. I was afraid of watching someone I loved disappear slowly. And now, I'm afraid of how quickly you did. Sometimes I reread our old messages. They're simple, ordinary, full of what's for dinner and don't forget to pick up milk. But I hold on to them like scripture. Because they're the last evidence that we had time before we ran out. She left me a note. I found it weeks after the funeral in a drawer I never opened. It wasn't long. If I go first, so don't make it poetic. Just remember me when you laugh. That's where I'll be. I didn't laugh for months. But when I finally did, I heard her in the corner of it. Soft, familiar, brief, and then gone again. There was no goodbye, no scene, no music swelling in the background. Just one phone call I didn't answer soon enough. Just one woman I didn't hold tight enough. Just one goodbye I never got to give. That's the thing about some goodbyes. They don't echo, they vanish, and leave you talking to closed doors and memories that don't talk back. If I could go back, I wouldn't bring flowers. I wouldn't rehearse a speech. I wouldn't wait for the right moment. I would just show up, be awkward, be quiet, be there. Because love doesn't need perfect endings. It just needs you present before the ending comes. It didn't come with thunder, no breaking point, no revelation. It came with a coffee cup, steam rising in the middle of a Tuesday morning. I was sitting in the kitchen, alone, no meetings, no flights to catch, no deadlines waiting. Just the sound of the refrigerator humming and rain tapping lightly on the window pane. I had made a fresh pot, poured it into a cup that used to be hers. Still had her lipstick mark faintly smudged on the rim. Funny how something so ordinary can hold the shape of someone no longer there. I took a sip, bitter, forgot the sugar, didn't matter. For once, I didn't reach for my phone, Didn't check the news. Didn't scroll past other people's curated lives. I just sat there, with it all, the silence, the weight, the ache that had been disguised as achievement for far too long. I looked out the window. A squirrel was building a nest, bit by bit, leaf by leaf, patient, certain. And something broke in me, but not loudly. It was a quiet surrender to the truth I had outrun for decades. I had built my life like a resume, line by line, title by title, all while losing the only things that made it worth writing. I had chased respect instead of connection, control instead of softness, efficiency instead of presence. And I had arrived somewhere high, but entirely alone. That morning, I finally allowed myself to feel, not think, not fix, not narrate, just feel. I let the guilt sit beside me, didn't shoo it away, didn't reframe it, didn't justify it. I let the grief crawl into my chest without naming it as weakness. I let the memory of everyone I didn't show up for stand silently in the room with me. And I didn't ask them to leave. For the first time, I didn't try to make sense of it all. I didn't search for meaning, or redemption, or narrative closure. I just let it be what it was. Regret, love, loss, and a strange, aching gratitude for having felt anything at all. That's when it happened. That shift, subtle, but unmistakable. I didn't feel lighter, but I felt honest. And honesty is the beginning of healing. I walked to the bookshelf, found the album I had avoided for years, opened it, page by page, her smile, my father's eyes, my son's first drawing, a dinner I once missed but was still captured in a photo someone else took. They were all there, all the people I had disappointed, but also all the people I had loved. That was the twist, the tenderness hidden in tragedy. I had loved, not perfectly, not consistently, but truly. I placed the album on the table, put my palm flat on the final page, and I whispered, "I see you. I remember. I'm still here." Then I stood up, walked outside, rain still falling, soft, gentle, like a permission from the sky. To begin again, not as a man trying to fix the past, but as one willing to carry it without letting it define him. Not everything needs to be repaired to be honored. Some things just need to be felt fully and let go slowly. That's what I learned in that quiet kitchen with the bitter coffee and the lipstick rim. Not through theory, not through therapy, but through presence. Pre-worry, through staying, not leaving, not fixing, not achieving, just staying. With myself, with my grief, with what remained after the noise stopped. That was the day I stopped running. Not because I had arrived, but because I had finally accepted where I was and who I was. If you're still carrying it, you don't have to put it down all at once. Just for a moment, here, with me. Let it sit beside us, like a quiet guest, like an old scar you no longer need to hide. I'm not here to teach you anything. God knows, I'm not the one to do that. I've forgotten birthdays, missed goodbyes, swallowed "I'm sorry" until it turned to stone in the back of my throat. I've stood outside rooms I should have walked into, let phones ring until regret left a voicemail. I've looked at people I loved and chose distance when they needed my arms. So no, I'm not here to teach. I'm here to tell you what I wish someone had told me before the silence took over. You're allowed to begin again, even after decades of getting it wrong. You're allowed to come back to what you left with shaky hands and nothing prepared. You're allowed to reach out without the perfect words. You're allowed to miss them, even if they're still alive but no longer in your life. You're allowed to forgive yourself for not knowing what you couldn't have known until now. If no one has told you yet, grief isn't a punishment. It's proof that you were brave enough to love. If no one has told you yet, you can still be the one who breaks the cycle, who says, "I want better," not just for me, but for what comes next. If no one has told you yet, you don't have to keep earning your worth. You already were enough before you even tried. You don't have to write a letter. You don't have to visit a grave. You don't have to perform your healing. But if you want, you can sit in the sun tomorrow morning, close your eyes, and whisper whatever it is you never got to say. Say it for them. Say it for you. Say it for the part of you that still needs to be heard. And if they're gone, say it anyway. Because sometimes the soul needs to hear what the ears never did. And sometimes the act of speaking it is the very thing that frees you. I don't have answers, but I have the echo of my own silence. I have the weight of everything I never said and everything I still hope to whisper before my time runs out. So I'll say this now, not as advice, but as offering, as remembrance, as a quiet promise from one broken voice to another. It's not too late to come home to yourself. It's not too late to unlearn what hurt you. It's not too late to soften. It's not too late to forgive the version of you who simply didn't know better. And if you've been waiting for a sign to feel again, this is it. Not because I'm saying it, but because you made it this far. And that means something in you still wants to heal, still believes there's more than just surviving. So take this video not as truth, but as mirror. Let it reflect back whatever it is you were too afraid to look at. And if it breaks you, let it. Some things need to shatter before they can shine. I never said goodbye, and I regret it. But I'm saying something now. Finally. I'm saying I love them. I miss them. I still do. And maybe, just maybe, this whisper is enough.